What drives someone to steal millions of dollars? Is it greed, desperation, or the thrill of outsmarting the system? Across U.S. history, some have attempted, and even succeeded, in pulling off some of the most daring and notorious heists the world has ever seen. But no matter how carefully they plan, most never escape the long arm of the law. Today we're diving into the top 10 most famous heists in U.S. history. Buckle up, it's about to get intense. We begin with one of the most audacious heists in U.S. history, the United California Bank Heist of 1972. A group of professional burglars led by Emil Dincio, a notorious criminal from Ohio, pulled off what they thought would be the perfect crime. Emil Dincio, along with his brother James, his nephews, and two skilled alarm experts, Harry Barber and Charles Mulligan, had one goal in mind: $30 million in cash and valuables, some believed to be linked to President Richard Nixon's secret slush fund. They meticulously dynamited their way into the bank vault over a weekend, using specialized tools and expert techniques. It was one of the biggest hauls in U.S. history. But they weren't as careful as they thought. Investigators discovered a crucial mistake: a single fingerprint left on a dish in the rented townhouse. This mistake unraveled their entire operation. The FBI soon tracked down the burglars, leading to their capture and conviction. While most of the crew received long prison sentences, much of the stolen money was never recovered. The next heist takes us to Los Angeles, where one of the largest cash thefts in U.S. history took place: the Dunbar Armored Robbery of 1997. This time it was an inside job, orchestrated by Alan Pace, a regional safety inspector for Dunbar Armored. Pace was not just any employee. He was responsible for overseeing the safety and security of the facility. But on September 12, 1997, he used his insider knowledge to disable the security cameras and lead a group of 5 childhood friends in a carefully planned heist. The gang successfully made off with nearly $19 million, the largest cash theft ever recorded in the U.S. They took careful measures to avoid detection, including disguising their escape routes and burning any evidence linking them to the crime. But their downfall came not from law enforcement, but from their own carelessness. One gang member, Eugene Hill, gave some of the stolen cash, still wrapped in Dunbar currency straps, to a friend. This single mistake led the FBI straight to them. Alan Pace was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Although most of the money was recovered, a significant portion of it remains missing to this day. Also in 1997, another audacious heist took place, this time in Jacksonville, Florida. The perpetrator? A lone armored car driver who saw an opportunity too tempting to resist. Philip Noel Johnson was no ordinary driver. He was trusted with millions of dollars. But on March 29, 1997, Johnson decided to betray that trust. He overpowered his co-workers, locked them in different locations, and fled with $18.8 million in cash. Johnson stashed the cash in a North Carolina storage unit and fled to Mexico, where he lived under a new identity, spending his ill-gotten gains. But Johnson's plan fell apart when he attempted to re-enter the U.S. 6 months later. Border agents grew suspicious of his multiple fake passports and arrested him on the spot. Johnson was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and the stolen cash was recovered from his North Carolina storage unit. The same year saw yet another Loomis Fargo heist, this time in Charlotte, North Carolina. But unlike the one-man operation in Florida, this heist involved a larger crew and an even more ambitious plan. David Gant, a disgruntled Loomis Fargo employee, was recruited by his ex-girlfriend Kelly Campbell and her associate Steve Chambers. Together, they hatched a plan to steal $17 million from the company's vault. On October 4, 1997, Gant executed the heist, loading the money into a van and fleeing to Mexico, leaving the majority of the stolen cash with Steve Chambers and the rest of the crew in the U.S. But greed would be their downfall. Chambers and his crew couldn't resist spending the money. They made extravagant purchases, including new luxury homes and cars, which caught the attention of the FBI. It didn't take long for the FBI to track Gaunt down in Mexico. Soon, the entire gang was arrested. Gaunt was sentenced to 7 years in prison, while the others received longer sentences. Most of the stolen money was recovered. In 1950, Boston became the backdrop for one of the most infamous heists in U.S. history, the Brinks Job. Led by Joseph Big Joe McGinnis, a gang of 11 experienced criminals set out to steal millions from the Brinks Armored Car Depot. On the night of January 17, 1950, the gang disguised themselves as police officers, entered the depot, and overpowered the guards. They meticulously planned every detail, making off with $2.8 million in cash, checks, and money orders. Their plan was nearly perfect. They hoped to lay low for 6 years until the statute of limitations expired. But greed and suspicion got the best of them. Just days before the statute expired, several members were arrested, thanks to informants and internal disputes. 8 members of the gang received life sentences, and only a fraction of the money was recovered. The Brinks Job remains one of the largest unsolved heists in U.S. history. Fast forward to 1978, New York City, the height of the Mafia era. Inside JFK Airport, millions of dollars in cash and jewels sit inside the Lufthansa cargo terminal, waiting for transport. But the Lucchese crime family had different plans. James Burke, known as Jimmy the Gent, was a notorious mobster with the Lucchese crime family. He assembled a crew of trusted associates to execute what would become one of the most famous heists in history. On the night of December 11, 1978, the gang overpowered guards at the Lufthansa terminal and made off with $5.9 million in cash and jewels, about $26 million today. It was the largest cash robbery in U.S. history at the time. But the celebration didn't last long. Fearing that one of his crew members would turn on him, Burke began eliminating them one by one to cover his tracks. Most of the money was never recovered, and Burke was never officially charged for the heist. But the Lufthansa heist remains an enduring legend, immortalized in movies like Goodfellas. New York City, the early 1970s. While the city was known for its wealth and opulence, it was also home to one of the largest hotel heists in history, the Pierre Hotel robbery of 1972. Samuel Nallo, a skilled criminal with ties to the Lucchese crime family, organized a crew that included Robert Comfort and other mafia associates. Their target? The Pierre Hotel's safe deposit boxes, where wealthy patrons kept millions in cash and jewels. On the night of January 2, 1972, the gang stormed the Pierre Hotel, taking 19 hostages and raiding the safe deposit boxes. They made off with $27 million, a staggering amount for the time. But like so many heists, greed and fear tore the crew apart. Several members were later killed in mafia-related hits, and the majority of the loot was never recovered. In December 1982, one employee's greed led to an $11 million robbery that would go down in history. This is the story of the Century Armored Car Company robbery. Christos Potamitis was an employee at Century Armored, trusted with the security and transport of millions of dollars in cash. But on December 12, 1982, he betrayed that trust. Potamitis led his accomplices into the facility, where they overpowered the guards and made off with $11 million. Potamitis thought he had pulled off the perfect crime, but his vacation to Puerto Rico after the heist led to his arrest. FBI agents tracked him down and recovered only a fraction of the stolen money. Potamitis was sentenced to prison, and after his release, he even wrote a screenplay about his life of crime, which was adapted into the 2013 film Empire State. In the wild frontier days of the early 1900s, train robberies were a common occurrence, but none were as famous as the Great Northern Train Robbery, carried out by Butch Cassidy and his gang in 1901. On August 29, 1901, Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch gang stopped the Union Pacific train in Montana, using dynamite to blow open the safe. Inside, they found $41,000 in cash and valuables, a huge sum for the time, equivalent to $1.3 million today. After the robbery, the gang fled to South America. where they continued their criminal activities. While it's believed that Cassidy died in a shootout in Bolivia, the exact details of his fate remain a mystery. March 18, 1990, Boston. In the early hours of St. Patrick's Day, two men dressed as police officers arrive at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They tell the museum guards they're responding to a disturbance. The guards, unsuspecting, allow them entry, but the disturbance, it's a ruse. Once inside, the officers tie up the guards and proceed with a meticulously planned heist. For the next 81 minutes, they roam the galleries, taking their time as they steal 13 pieces of art. Among the treasures, masterpieces by Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Degas. The total value? A staggering $500 million. It's the largest art heist in U.S. history, and to this day, one of the most baffling unsolved crimes. Despite a massive FBI investigation and endless speculation, the identities of the thieves remain a mystery. No artwork has ever been recovered. As a reminder of what was lost, the museum continues to display the empty frames where these masterpieces once hung. 34 years later, the case remains unsolved. A $10 million reward is still on the table for anyone who can help recover the stolen works. But for now, the mystery endures. Throughout history, these heists have captivated the public's imagination, each one offering a glimpse into the minds of those who dared to challenge the system. But no matter how perfectly a heist is planned, greed, mistakes, and fate often intervene, ensuring that most criminals face justice in the end. Which heist surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thank you for watching.